So we've been using CSS selectors up to this point, but JQuery also provides its own unique selectors that add some more functionality. And so that's what we're going to review over the next several videos, the main JQuery selectors that most people use. So if we go up here in our HTML page, let's say we want to target this first section, which we've given an ID selector of left. So let's say we want to select that to hide. So let's go back down to our jQuery code and let's go ahead and get rid of this #right. Now a jQuery selector usually starts out with a colon. That's what it usually starts out with. And then we just put in the keyword of first, and that will target the first element of a particular type. In this case, it's going to be the div element type. So we just put in div here. Now notice this is still a CSS selector right here. This is a type selector, of course. Right here, though, is where the jQuery part of it starts, the jQuery selector. So again, we use a colon, and then we use the keyword first. And that, of course, will select the very first div element, and then it will, of course, use the hide method to hide that section. Of course, the first div section is right here, this with the ID of left. This should be hidden if this works correctly. So let's go ahead and launch our page here. And so again, we're targeting this first div section right here. So hopefully that is hidden. And it was. So good. Now, what if we want to hide the last div section? Well, we just use the keyword of last. Pretty simple. So another jQuery selector that we can use. So let's go ahead and relaunch our web page. Now watch what happens here. I want you to pay close attention to this. Notice the button itself was hidden. Did you see that? That's because this is a div element. And yes, it is the last div element on our web page. So that's why that was hidden. So what if we want to save our button and not hide this? Well, there's another jQuery selector that we can use to accomplish that. And that is done with the not keyword. So again, it's the not keyword we use. So if we come down here, we just specify not, and then we have to put in parentheses everything that we do not want to be included in our selection. And in this case, we don't want this div element with our button selected. So we can just put in #test here, right? And use the CSS selector so that this button will not be hidden. Now, if you take a look at this code right here, this should be the only section now that isn't hidden because we didn't put any other sections in here. So all of the sections in our web page, except for our button, should be hidden, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and reload our page. And if we hit our button, all the sections now are hidden except for our button, which is what we wanted. Now let's say we wanted to save a section in here. Let's save our center section. So let's go ahead and just put in a comma, and we just put in, of course, #center for our center section. And let's go ahead and reload our page. And if we hit our button, now the center section is not hidden, as well as our button. So that's how the not jQuery selector works. It's very useful. Now let's refresh our page. Now, what if we wanted to just get rid of this first paragraph right here? Well, we could go back and use the first jQuery selector. So let's type in first. And then, of course, if we go up to our code here, we're just going to use the P type selector, right? So we'll put that in right here. But then keep in mind, this code right here would hide all of the paragraphs, and we don't want to do that. We just want to hide this first paragraph in this first section. So we can use a descendant selector. Let's do that. So we'll just specify #left down here, and we'll just put it right here. And so now we've got our descendant CSS selector, which will specify a paragraph in our left section, which of course is our first section. And then this jQuery selector right here will say, hey, select the first paragraph to hide. And so let's go ahead and save this. We'll relaunch our web page and we'll see if this works. And we hit our button, and it did. It got rid of the very first paragraph. So that's an initial look at these jQuery selectors. We'll continue on with jQuery selectors in the next video.